You know, some mysteries, they're not buried deep in the past. They're standing right in front of us. And today, we're going to dive into some absolutely incredible buildings, paintings, and technical marvels from ancient India that still have experts scratching their heads.
Okay, so take a look at this. This is an iron pillar in Mehrauli, Delhi. Now, at first glance, you might think, okay, it's a column, so what? But trust me, this thing holds a secret that is just wow.
First off, this thing is ancient. I mean, really ancient. We're talking 1,500 years old. For a millennium and a half, it's just been sitting there, out in the open, dealing with rain, wind, everything. And here's the kicker, the part that just blows your mind. After 15 centuries, it hasn't rusted, not a bit. Modern science figured out there's a secret ingredient, a high level of phosphorus in the iron. It basically created this tiny invisible shield that's protected it all this time. We're talking about an incredible piece of ancient chemical engineering.
So that leads us to the big question we're tackling today. Just how? How on earth did these ancient craftspeople create things of such incredible beauty and technical skill that they've literally survived for millennia?
All right, let's dig into this 1,500-year-old mystery a little deeper. What else can this amazing pillar tell us?
Okay, and you've got to understand, this isn't some little garden ornament. This thing is a beast. It's over 7 meters tall and weighs more than 3 tons. And thanks to an inscription, we know it was made for a ruler named Chandra, who was likely part of the powerful Gupta dynasty.
Now, a pillar like this doesn't just happen by accident, right? This was the result of centuries of know-how. And to really get how they made it, we need to talk about the real masters behind the magic, the ancient metallurgists.
So, metallurgy. That's just the fancy word for the craft of working with metals. And let me tell you, ancient Indian metallurgists were absolute wizards at it. They made massive contributions that shaped the history of this craft all over the world.
And this wasn't an overnight thing. Their skills were built up over hundreds, even thousands of years. You had the Harappans back in the Bronze Age who were already masters with copper and bronze. Then, the folks who came after them took all that knowledge and just ran with it, perfecting ironwork in ways that were just way ahead of their time.
But this incredible skill with materials, it didn't stop with metal. Oh no, they took that same ambition, that same insane precision, and applied it to stone. The result? These massive, breathtaking structures built to last forever, stupas and temples.
I mean, just look at this. This is the Great Stupa at Sanchi. The word stupa literally just means mound. But these were so much more. They were some of the most important buildings of their time.
So let's break down how they're built. Right in the very center, you'd have a little box, a relic casket, holding sacred remains or maybe some precious stones. Then, that's covered by this huge dome made of brick, and all around that there's a walkway for people to circle, with railings and these incredibly ornate gateways.
And those gateways weren't just entrances. They were full-blown works of art, just covered in these super detailed, intricate sculptures that told entire stories. I mean, look at this stunning piece from the stupa at Amaravati. The detail is just mind-boggling.
Okay, so building with brick is impressive enough, but then these craftspeople decided to take on a challenge that sounds, well, almost impossible. They started creating monolithic temples, like the ones you see here at Mahabalipuram. And this is what's so hard to wrap your head around. Think about how you build something, right? You start at the bottom and add layers going up. A monolithic temple is the complete opposite. The builders would find one gigantic piece of stone and carve the entire temple out of it, starting from the top and working their way down. Can you even imagine the level of planning that takes? There's no backspace, no undo button, one mistake and it's all over.
Just so you can see the difference, here's another temple from around the same time, about 1,500 years ago, at Bittergao. This one was built in the way we'd expect, stacking bricks and stones from the ground up. Still an amazing building, don't get me wrong, but a completely different ballgame.
So you've got engineering marvels, incredible carvings, but the wonders didn't stop on the outside. Inside some of these places, a whole other kind of magic was happening.
Just take a second to look at this painting. It's from the Ajanta caves, and these weren't buildings, they were entire monasteries for Buddhist monks that were carved by hand out of the sides of hills over hundreds of years.
And here's where the story gets even more incredible. You have to remember, these are caves. It's pitch black inside. The artists were painting these masterpieces by the flickering light of torches. They made their own paints from plants and minerals. And somehow, after 1,500 years, the colors are still this bright, this vibrant. But maybe the craziest part of all? We have no idea who these artists were. They're completely anonymous.
So that begs the question, right? Who were these people? Who paid for all this? Who actually built these incredible monuments that have lasted for so long?
Well, building something like this was a huge, expensive undertaking. And it wasn't just one person footing the bill. It was a real community effort. Sure, kings and queens would get things started with money from the treasury, but then you'd have everyday devotees bringing gifts to help with the decorations. Even groups of skilled workers, like the ivory carvers at Sanchi, would chip in to pay for parts of the structure.
And this is the part I find so moving. It was also funded by hundreds of regular people. Merchants, farmers, people who made flower garlands, perfumers, blacksmiths, just ordinary men and women. The only record we have of them is their name, carefully carved onto a pillar or a railing that they helped pay for.
And this amazing creative spirit wasn't just about building things you could see and touch. It flowed into everything, including incredible stories and epic poems that have been passed down for generations. It really was a culture dedicated to making things that would endure.
So, you've got the pillar that won't rust, temples carved from the top down, paintings with colors that defy time, a legacy in stone and metal. But the artists who painted those caves? Anonymous. The specific people who built that grand stupa? Mostly unknown. And that leaves us with one last, really powerful question to ponder. What does it truly mean to create a legacy that completely outlives your own name?